Okay, well, there are many, but I would say the biggest three mistakes that people make, first of all, is not hyper-targeting their CV to a certain role. It needs to be ultra hyper-targeted. You can't just have a generic catch-all CV where people have to make their own mind up whether you're suitable for the job. It has to be laser targeted. You have to make sure that your opening section of that CV, so how you describe yourself, is super aligned with the job title. You need to make sure that your value proposition that you're describing is aligned with the job mission, and you need to make sure that all the skills that you're telling the world you have are aligned with the key requirements of the role. You can then do other things such as back them skills up with case studies, which focus around your biggest achievements and projects that you might have done. But hyper targeting a CV is super important, and not many people are doing that right now. In fact, I think statistically, about 70% of people don't target their CV to an application. The next thing is achievements. When we review CVs, we do offer a free CV and LinkedIn profile appraisal to the world at large. And whenever we are reviewing CVs, typically the first thing we say to people is, look, I've read your CV and I'm going to ask you a loaded question. How can I tell that you're good at your job? And at that stage, usually people go quiet, think about it, maybe venture a response, but most of the time people will be like, oh, actually you can't, can you? And it's because all their CV is a list of where they've worked with half a dozen bullet points describing what they did in that role, or should I say what they were supposed to do in that role. There's no evidence or information that would tell me that they did that role well. They might have been terrible at their job for all we know. So CVs devoid of any evidence that the individual is good at their job. So you need to make sure your CV is full of projects with outcomes and achievements. Focus on the business benefits that you delivered, and where you've made things better, improved things, where your key performance indicators that you perform against have gone in the right direction as a result of the work that you did. And then third point is probably the fact that people don't put any effort whatsoever into their CVs. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people just fling it together on a Sunday afternoon and hope for the best. And they'll build the CV to their own psychology. And, they like it, but they've built it because they like it. They're not thinking about their target audience. Will their target audience like it? And it's thinking about who you're sending it to, what their preferences and likes are, rather than what you personally like and don't like. I was speaking to somebody today who said, well, personally, I don't read CVs that aren't really short. I like really short CVs. So I'm going to do a really short CV because that's what I like. And I'm like, well, okay, that's all well and good, but have you got any evidence to suggest that the people you'll be sending your CV to also all like really short CVs? And she kind of stopped and thought and said, well, it's a good point, because no, I don't really know how long CVs should be. All I know is what I like. So I was just going to do what I like because it's my CV, isn't it? I'm like, well, it is, but you're the last person in the world who's going to be looking at your CV with a view to giving you a job. So what's more important is what everybody else thinks. So go and do your research, think about how long other people like a CV to be. And at the more senior end of the market, usually in the UK, it's about 3 pages. In North America, it's about 2 pages. And you can look at the Middle East, that's probably 2 pages. Look at Europe, that might be 2 pages. But somewhere between 2 and 3 pages is about right for a senior level person. But coming back to this point of people not putting that much effort into it, I think about 80%, statistically 80% of CVs have a typo. And look at it this way. I was talking to a group of senior executives, and I actually made them in a workshop work out how much they're going to cost a future employer. And for most people in that room, the number was somewhere between £500,000 and £750,000, based on the fact that we estimate they'll stick around in that job for about 3 years. So 3 years in a job, they're going to be costing their future employer, if you add everything up, salary, pension, national insurance contributions that the employer pays, pension, recruitment fees, training fees, IT licenses, training, everything that goes with hiring a member of staff and developing a member of staff, between £500,000 and £750,000. And I said to them, if you were creating a pitch deck or a sales document or a tender document for a contract of that size, how many hours and how much time and effort would you put into it? And everybody shared their views. And then I said, and how much time and effort have you put in your CV? And everybody sat there kind of scratching their chins and their heads, and the penny dropped at that point that they are pitching for a contract of that value, an employment contract, and they do need to try much harder than they probably are to secure a contract of that size, especially at the minute where, we've heard recruiters in the IT sector saying that they've had as many as, I think it was 575 applicants for each job. They'd put 20 jobs live, and within a week they'd had 11,500 applicants. This is for qualified and technical positions. So the competition is fierce. So if you're not hyper targeting your CV to the application, you're not packing it full of achievements, and you're not spending the time and effort on it, then you're going to be number 575 on the list rather than in that top 5 where you're going to be shortlisted and perhaps get an interview.